let's be honest. At any point in time, since the first time you saw Sean Strickland, did you think he was going to be a world champion? When you first saw him come into the UFC, when you saw him at welterweight, when you saw him at middleweight, when he went on a winning streak, when you saw his boxing start to get better, at any time, did you think that you were going to see a day when Dana White was strapping the belt around his waist? I didn't. Never thought it would happen, dude. I never thought I would see it. Like, I just thought the guy wasn't quite well-rounded enough. I didn't think he had enough wrinkles or nuance to his game. I didn't think he had anything special that really, truly stood out that was going to cover up for any weaknesses that he had.
Don't you have a black belt?
Yeah, I got one of those.
In jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I got one a while ago. This bullshit doesn't work.
I just thought that he was going up against some guys who were incredibly talented, man. I mean, middleweight is no joke. Never has been. So when I look back, it's kind of surprising. And even when we look back at how it all went down, it wasn't really what you would call a traditional shot. He didn't earn it in a traditional way, so to speak. And I don't mean to take anything from the guy, but he wasn't even supposed to get that title shot. Wasn't even supposed to get that match. That was for somebody else. As a matter of fact, we know who that was for, Du Plessis. The man he's stepping in the octagon across now. Drops out because of an injury. Sean Strickland gets the call on late notice. 6 weeks later, he's stepping in there, pulling off a huge upset, man. And look, it wasn't luck. Sean Strickland went out there and fought the fight that Sean Strickland always goes out there and fights. It just so happened that he executed it at a really high level, and he executed against the champ. Now, there's a lot of people who will try and say that Adesanya had an off night. There's a lot of people who will try to say that it wasn't necessarily that Sean Strickland won the fight, that it was Israel Adesanya that lost the fight. Whatever, man. I'm not really I'm not really here from that. I don't really buy into that. Sean Strickland went out there and won that fight. Like I said, he went out there and fought the fight that we always see him fight. We've seen his boxing get better over the years. We've seen that he doesn't really have a kicking game. We've seen that he doesn't really utilize any kind of an offensive wrestling game. We've seen a boxing-based attack. We've seen aggressiveness. We've seen cardio. We've seen defensive wrestling. It's like, that's it, man. Like, that's his whole game. But he executes it at a very high level. He does it really well. And he's sparring all the time. Everybody that you talk to, everybody that mentions his name says a few things. One, the dude's an incredibly hard worker. Two, he spars all the time. Now, you may think sparring all the time isn't the way to go. And there's a really strong argument to be made for that. It's what boxers used to do back in the day. All of a sudden you see these guys with all these brain injuries. People are talking like their tongues are all fat, all kinds of stuff. They're like, we need to lay off of the sparring. We need to work more in drills. We need to be very selective in the way that we use our sparring so that we can have longevity to our career. We're not here to just get our heads beat around, dude. We're not in some rock'em sock'em robot type contest. We're professional prize fighters. Let's act like it. Let's bring some professionalism to the sport. This isn't just a tough guy contest. Totally get that. Totally strong argument made for that. But here's the thing. The reason you do that is to avoid the punishment. And I heard Sean Strickland talking one day, man, and he was mentioning how the UFC did this experiment where they gave him these mouth guards.
There's not many people who spar him that hit him.
Right.
Same with me. It's like, again, I could get knocked out. Max get knocked out. I could go spar every single day, all day long, and I could say I don't really take damage. I mean, I proved it with that stupid mouthpiece they had me wear.
And these mouth guards were, I don't know, they had like radio chips in them or something. They were attached to something, whatever the case may be. But they were recording how much punishment you absorbed, right? Probably like the frequency and the intensity of the punishment you absorbed. And Sean Strickland said that even though he sparred the most out of anybody, he absorbed the least amount of punishment. And it goes to show you, the dude is really good, man. I get it. Like, we see him out there. He's talking all the time. He seems like a Neanderthal in some ways. This dude presents himself as a knuckle dragger, talks about how he didn't graduate high school, super troubled background and past and everything. He knows how to fight. He knows how to fight. And when he gets in there and he spars all the time, what you learn is how to deal with all different kinds of looks, and you learn what works. It may not be what's necessarily taught in a drill. It may not be what you necessarily saw somebody else do or what you saw in a YouTube video or something like that. It may be a variation of all different kinds of things that you saw, because not only do you have to make it work, but you have to make it work for you. Like your body style, who you're going up against, all that. But dude's in Las Vegas on top of it, so he's seeing just fighter after fighter after fighter come through there because it's the fight capital of the world, basically. So he's seen all kinds of guys come through there, getting all different kinds of looks, sparring with all these guys. And dude, it's just... he figured it out, man. He figured it out and he built it into his system and he knows how to make it work. And he avoids punishment. He gets his shots off. He's aggressive, but not overly aggressive, right? As he's worked the way up. One of the things he's done is incorporate some patience into his game. He's got a really good jab that he uses to set the table, comes through with the right hand. Like, the dude's got it, man, right? Now, standing across from him, Du Plessis. I was going back and forth on this fight for a long time because both of these guys are really talented, right? And both of them are unique, and both of them aren't exactly what you'd expect. And when I was thinking about how this was going to match up and what these guys were going to do, man, like, it wasn't necessarily easy because you can keep going back and forth. You can keep thinking about what each man's going to bring to the table and how it's going to play out, what the other guy's going to do to try and adapt, the changes that they're going to make. You know, Dricus Du Plessis, man, he is a handful. He is a handful for anybody at 185 pounds, right? I mean, you think about what he did to Darren Till, you think about what he did to Blon Brunson, you think about what he did to Robert Whitaker, the former champ. The former champ, man. What he went out there and what he did to Rob. No easy task. And he's awkward, he's unorthodox, but he's big and he's strong. One of the things that you always hear Joe Rogan mention it a few times, I want to say Daniel Cormier mentioned it, is like, you're standing next to this dude and you don't understand how he makes 185 pounds. What exactly does he do to boil himself down to 185 pounds? Because the dude is strong and he's big and he's got this athleticism and this like twitchiness, bounciness to his movement, and he's energetic and stuff, like, and he does things that you don't quite expect, and he's switching his stances, and I swear sometimes he seems like almost, he does things wrong, right? Like just the way that he'll come forward with strikes, the ways that he'll leap, the way the foot that he moves off of, depending on the shot that he uses and stuff. But he makes it work the vast majority of the time, right? At least when it counts. At least at the end of the match, when they're deciding who won and they're holding up a guy's hand, he's the guy who's getting his hand held up. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't come with some punishment, doesn't come with some flaws, doesn't come with getting caught with some shots. You think about that last fight with Robert Whitaker. Look back in that first half of the first round. Rob was catching him with some nice shots. Caught him with a jab, caught him with a left hook, caught him with a right hand. Like, Dricus is there to be hit, okay? And it's because he's aggressive. It's because he's coming forward. He doesn't really have that patience. He doesn't have a nuanced defense. He's got his head in the air a lot of times, or his chin in the air a lot of times, I should say. He's not getting off the center line in a lot of ways that you would expect from a high-level fighter. But when he's able to do what he wants to do, when he's able to control that gap, when he's able to come forward, when he's able to put that work rate on guys, when he's able to mix in some takedowns, when he's able to get that ground and pound going because he is powerful, like, he looks good, man. He looks like he can go out there and he looks like he can put it on guys because he does. What's he going to do if he's getting backed up? What's he going to do if Sean Strickland is the man who's coming forward? Because I'll be perfectly honest, I think Sean Strickland is going to be the guy who's coming forward. Dude, he's got the better boxing. He's got the better hands. Now, Dricus has got a really nasty low kick, right? But you think Sean Strickland ain't seen a low kick before? He's dealt with plenty of guys who want to come in there and chop that leg up. And he's dealt with it, and he's handled it. He's continued to move forward. Think about the man that he took the belt from, Israel Adesanya. He's got a pretty good low kick. Sean Strickland handled it. I think he's going to be able to deal with it. He'll get caught with it a few times, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, he knows how to check a kick. He'll be able to deal with that. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to be able to come forward. And I think that he's the guy who's going to be able to make changes if necessary. Or they will be necessary, but he's the guy who's going to be able to adapt and make changes throughout that fight. He's got a deeper toolbox. I think he's got more experience. I think he's going to be able to handle the moment a little bit better, which is surprising because I'm going to get to that in a second. But I think he's going to be able to handle the moment a little bit better when he's in there. I think he'll be able to draw on a deeper reservoir of not only the fights, but all the different sparring that he's seen and everything that he's done and how that's going to play out. If his plan A doesn't work, I think he'll feel comfortable going to a plan B. And I don't know if that's what we're going to see from Du Plessis. I don't know if he's going to feel comfortable doing all those things. I don't know if he's getting backed up. We typically see him go to that high guard. We see him move around a little bit. But if he's not able to get out of there right away, if all of a sudden he feels his back against the cage and Sean Strickland is still coming forward and he's putting those shots on him and he's got the work rate going and he's throwing the combinations, dude, we're going to see dude gets a little bit frantic almost. He gets a little bit worried. All of a sudden you start to see him put his head in places that he isn't supposed to put it. Like, what if Sean Strickland all of a sudden decides that he's going to start to mix in the offensive wrestling in this one? He wants to get him down. He wants to put Du Plessis on his back. He wants to see if he can hold him there and land a few shots of his own. Look, we've never seen Dricus go 5 rounds. We know that Sean Strickland can handle it. We know that he can do it at a good rate. We know that he's just got this defense where he knows how to deflect shots with the guard. He knows how to make things happen. I think he'll be able to avoid any big shots. So I'm going with Sean Strickland in this one. I think he's going to get the win. I think when we look back, we're going to say that getting the belt made him better. You know, one of the things that I was worried about with this fight was his emotional state. Ever since we saw him go on the Joe Rogan episode, man, the Joe Rogan podcast, he's been out there and he's been doing all kinds of things on social media. He's been on Theo Vaughn. He's been on talking to this guy. He's giving interviews. He's with Nina all the time, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And the dude's been talking a lot about his past. And one of the things that I was concerned about, we saw him, was him getting too emotional. We saw him at the fight a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with him and Dricus in the crowd, and all of a sudden, you know, he moves Gilbert Burns' son out of the way, and then all of a sudden jumps in there and starts getting all crazy and starts a fight in the audience and stuff. And typically when you see a guy get that emotional, they get that wound up, it doesn't work out well for him. They don't typically perform well on fight night, right? Because they're too consumed with other things. They're too consumed with things that don't really matter when you actually step into the octagon. And all of that drama and all of those emotions and all of those things that are bubbling around and going over, none of that matters on fight night. It takes you away from your technique. It takes you away from your cardio, your speed, your focus. It takes you away from all of the things that you're going to need to win. Now, that being said, I still think that Sean Strickland is going to find a way to come out with the victory on fight night. I think that once we see this hit the championship rounds, 4 and 5, I think that's when we're really going to see him start to shine, where he's going to start to put things together. He's going to be able to really see everything, figure out what works, and I think we see him put it on. So let me know what you guys think. Am I underestimating what Du Plessis brings? Am I overestimating what Sean Strickland brings? Do you think he's going to be really focused for this one and locked in? Let me know what you guys think.